If you grew up ever being told by the adults in your life that you were gonna be big one day or some mediocre talent of yours was out of this world, you probably identify as a former gifted kid. Were you 12 and somehow knew how to unlock all the mysteries of the universe? Or were your parents just maybe a little too doting? Do you look back at yourself as a kid and realize, damn, I really just knew how to read a little faster than the other kids in my school? Now, discourse around the former gifted kid has always been very interesting to me because I am an overachiever. Duh. Statistics show there's a really high chance that I'll get a master's degree one day. Once I recover from the burnout that I never recovered from after getting my first degree, yeah, you'll catch me getting that second one. I worked insanely hard in school, got super burnt out, and now making food for myself 3 times a day gives me heart palpitations. There's always something to do, you know what I mean? Like, it's always something. Sometimes I crash out, just like you. But I do like this discourse because why does that happen for real? Like, why is it when you were like 12 years old and you finished your times table quizzes fast as hell, the adults in your life were like so freaked out about it? Like, yes, the kid beside you can barely read, but also it's like, all right, like I'm doing some pretty basic things just like slightly better than other kids do them, you know? Also, not to make it political, but like, I'm a black girl. Failure was like not really an option for me, you know what I mean? I come from a long lineage of overachievers. And believe it or not, I'm still underachieving relative to the rest of my family. So I kind of did burn myself out to still be a failure. It just felt like all the adults were so quick to tell you, oh my God, you're gifted, you're so different. But like, I actually wasn't. Maybe this is a niche experience. Was skipping grades like a really important thing in y'all's schools, or is that just mine? Because I got promoted a grade, and let me tell you, if you've ever experienced that hyper-specific experience, we deserve a veteran's discount. In some schools, it was like fine to have certain kids either fully skip a grade level or at least do classes in the grade level above them if they were too advanced for their current grade level. This happened to me in grade 4, where I moved to grade 5. And looking back on it, it's like, this is so stupid. It was so weird, and God, it was so awkward. It was so weird because at that point in your life, age is so important. People who are 1 year above you might as well be the ancestors, you know? I just feel like in the 4th grade, you look up to 6th graders like gods because they're about to graduate and maybe even leave. Like, these are the top achievers in your universe at that time. You know, it just feels like at that point in your life, being young is kind of an L. Like, what do you mean you're a year younger than me, you f***ing idiot? And God, you just felt it. You just felt it so aggressively at that time. I need to know if I'm alone in this experience. And to be honest, I didn't excel in the 5th grade class because I didn't know what the f was going on. Because I don't think being gifted actually means that you have unlocked some mystery of the universe. It's probably just like you're a faster learner, like you just pick up on things quickly. But the key there is that I have to have learned it. I've never learned 5th grade shit at that point, so I just didn't know it. So then it kind of felt like I failed, you know what I mean? Like I failed the 5th grade because I wasn't in the 5th grade, and the adults in your life are looking at you like, damn, are you gifted? I don't know. I'm unlocking some memories that I had stored so deep in me. However, this video is not about my trauma. This video is about the pipeline of going from a gifted kid in your elementary school and maybe even your high school into being a completely average or even totally useless below average adult. And while I do want to make fun of us in this video, this is also a cry for solidarity. I am looking for my people with this hyper-specific niche experience and trauma. I feel like there's a connection to this and the whole discussion that surrounds Gen Z not wanting to work. And let me just ask y'all a question. Everybody who's ever written an article like that, when was the last time you had to apply for a job? Because if it wasn't yesterday, I don't want to hear anything you have to say. Everyone who's making that assumption is either locked into the same soulless job for the last 30 years or too rich to work, you know what I mean? But to all the boomers who keep asking that question, I can answer for you plainly. There's no jobs out here, all right? Yes, it looks like there's a lot of jobs, but they're not actually hiring people, all right? They're bots, they're AI. They already have an internal hire that they want. That's what's going on. Everybody's applying for jobs. Everybody's applying for a billion jobs. You know how LinkedIn can show you the number of applicants? Pretty much every job on there right now has at minimum like 500 applicants. And LinkedIn can only count people that applied on LinkedIn. There are other applicants from other sites. I don't know if that was a sidetrack, but it doesn't matter. Either way, I feel like that ties into the whole gifted kid to useless adult thing because I feel like like the reason why people don't want to work is also something to do with how working is. I don't know. I can say as a present day art kid, former smart kid, never the fart kid. Shit out here is tough. But I feel like I also know exactly why we become like this, and it's because of the myth of meritocracy. That's a big word for Elmo. And the myth of meritocracy is a phrase arguing that achieving upward social mobility through one's own merits, regardless of one's social position, is not widely attainable in capitalistic societies because of inherent contradictions. Basically saying your hard work doesn't always get you any rewards.
And then I'm supposed to get up here and say, follow your dreams, as if this is a meritocracy. It is not.
The goddamn myth of it. That shit ain't real. Here's something that I think is probably very common in every former gifted kid is I think a lot of us are super goal driven in the way that we work. And I know that that's probably not good. There's something to be said about being a goal driven person and also being in an environment that actually has end goals where you get rewards and awards for the things that you do. Now, obviously there are outliers to this. Like we all know that there were kids who didn't need to study that hard and did really well. Plot twist, I think all of them were lying and they actually did work really hard for their marks, but whatever. But there was also people who did try very hard and didn't do that well. There are extremes to this, but I'm speaking very generally. I think for the most part, with the way school is set up, if you study harder for a test than you normally do, you'll probably get a higher mark. If you give yourself more time to write the essay, you're able to work harder at it. You're probably gonna get a better essay. You're probably gonna get a better mark. Give me rewards or give me death.
That was a joke.
All that to say is that I feel like in school, you could actually pretty well reap the rewards of the work that you did. So if you end up being more of a goal-oriented person, you have a clear end goal and you'll also get rewarded for it, most likely. There's also usually a specific end date. You know what I mean? That's the goal, to finish. You finish, you get the degree. If you do really well, you might even get a little gold sticker. There's something. But then once you graduate and you get that degree and that diploma and you enter the real world, it's just so different. Especially if you happen to have studied something in school that means that you're going to end up in a more corporate environment. There is no environment where the myth of meritocracy is more mythical than the corporate world. If you are a person who's driven by goals and who likes getting to be able to complete tasks and reap rewards for your work, you're going to get crushed here. Because what you're going to realize sitting in your team meetings is that all that matters is being a personality hire. And unfortunately, your whole personality was based in being good in what you do. So you're cooked. But you realize that the real world immediately is not that cut and dry. You know what I mean? You working extra hard at your job, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's an end date to your current position and you're gonna ever get promoted. It doesn't mean you're gonna make more money. It doesn't really mean anything. And I think that this is especially true if you happen to be of the age where you were starting your career or in the early stages of your career in the 2020s. Meaning like if you graduated around 2017, 18, 19, like you graduated in the lead up to the panty and thus this world that we live in right now, then I think there is an additional level of everything's on fire and you don't know what to do about your whole career. You know what I mean? Your hard work in getting that degree might not really help you that much right now. Sorry to say, because I think a lot of us have had the really fun experience of watching some of the most hardworking people on our teams still get laid off because we have a commitment to make to our stakeholders. I remember around like 2021, 2022, there was so many TikToks of people opening their laptop and within 24 hours having a meeting with HR. Like you're watching people that have worked and given 20 years to a company getting laid off left, right, and center. And it's so aggressively unfair that it's like, how do you then force yourself to give a shit? And that wasn't a rhetorical question. I actually have an answer for you. All you have to do is just look at your bills. Close your eyes and meditate on your landlord banging down your door asking you where the your rent is. All of this to say, for a group of people who were potentially very driven by reward, end dates, end goals, and external validation, thriving in an environment like this is a little difficult. And some people might even say, oh, but what about just like loving your job and like thriving in the role?
Shut up.
Like, hello, some random CEO got a bonus of $1 bajillion this quarter, but for some reason I can't ask for like 10% more. Now all of a sudden when it pertains to me, it's got to be for love of the game. But I also don't think it's that crazy to want some reward for the effort you put in. Goddamn. It's not fair, and I'm saying like it doesn't instill a ton of trust in people, and it doesn't make people want to work that hard. You know what I mean? It makes people angry. It makes me angry. I am people. And I do also feel like there's some elements of being a gifted kid that kind of messes with your emotional development. Because I feel like you do come out of it potentially a little emotionally stunted. You know what I mean? Like, we're not where we should be. It kind of, I feel like, makes it a lot harder to figure out what to do next, because environments with goals have like clear next steps. In an environment where that's not guaranteed, it's also kind of hard to figure out, like, all right, what am I trying so hard for? What am I gonna do next? Like, you're asking me to pursue something that doesn't come with instant gratification? I'd rather die. Like, oh, you want to try this new hobby that you're probably gonna suck at before you get good? Don't, because if you fail, you're worth nothing. So don't bother. And I think it just bleeds into your personal life in terms of like a fear of rejection and inability to be like a self-starter. You know, I feel like all those things get harder and harder. I could be just describing the symptoms of ADHD, so maybe get tested for that too. I don't know. But it does kind of instill in you this like really abject fear of failure, you know, like having the additional pressure all throughout your life and through school of being better than everybody else. That doesn't really just disappear. You know what I mean? You're an overachiever at your core. So like now, when that's not really possible to do in the new environments that you're in outside of school, it kind of locks you into a freeze state almost. I think it just makes you stunted. It makes you frozen. It makes you unable to just do something next. What's next? It just makes it hard to move forward with your life, I think. And I did mention that this wasn't just about stroking the egos of former gifted kids to try and explain our trauma to everybody. No, I'm also here to make fun of y'all, because I absolutely do not identify with all of you guys. Some of you guys suck. But I saw an Instagram reel, I know, but it was essentially talking about how dumb people are more successful than smart people. And if I can find an example of something similar to this, I'll put it in. It's essentially describing about dumb people being more likely to just do a lot of things, no matter how stupid it is, without thinking about it. And that constant process of trial and error usually leads to success faster than more thinky people, because they're more likely to meditate on everything they do before they do it. And I don't know, maybe it's unrelated, but that felt really heavy to me, like gifted kid cope. That's what it felt to me. That's what it is. You are a former gifted kid who is stuck in freeze mode and you're trying to cope with it. Because I think what you're seeing is a bunch of those kids that you recognize from school who are absolute time wasters making tons of money. You're seeing the Twitch streamers, you're seeing the Kai Cenats, and you're looking down on them because you're like, oh, I recognize this personality and I'm smarter than them. I worked harder than them. I got better grades than them, but I'm not nearly as successful as them. And I'm here to tell you that that is cope. You're not smarter than Kai Cenat. Like, I just know whoever conceptualized that idea used to get hugs from their teacher. This is a kid who used to hug the teacher, who used to bring her something actually kind of expensive on Teacher's Day. You're f***ing nerd. And it's also genuinely such a stupid sentiment. Like, get off your high horse. In my opinion, all it's actually describing is being action-oriented over thought-oriented. The dumb people in question are action-oriented people. They know that in order to find out what works, you gotta keep throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. To be successful, you gotta do things. Duh. You are not smarter because you sit around thinking deeply about all your genius ideas every day. You just are frozen. You're stuck in freeze mode and incapable of execution. That's not smart. You're not an analytical mind. You're an overthinker who executes on nothing. You are on a lazy river ride, and that river is denial. So what was the point of this video and what is the wrap up? Shout out to the useless child to gifted adult pipeline, all right? The real heroes of our society. And that, my friends, is the video. Me and the most gifted audience that you could ever imagine are grateful that you watched. So I'm curious, are y'all former gifted kids, former useless kids, current gifted kids, current useless kids, current useless adults, or current gifted adults? I want to know where you stand and how you feel about everything that I said. Your voice and your stories matter. And if you've made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.